Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and today is no ordinary episode, not at all. In fact, watch this. We are here celebrating, partying, vacationing with Steve Wright. I've got my Hawaiian Girl Aloha shirt on because when I think of hula girls, I think of Steve Wright. And so,
What?
or vice versa. Actually, I should say I'm in Jamaica because you have a hat that says Jamaica on it, and you are the man, as discussed on a restream event called the water cooler drop-in event. You did share with us how you liberated Jamaica by yourself, and when we celebrated Jamaica Independence Day, you shared that heroic tale. People can catch that replay in the Managers Who Lead Facebook group. But yeah, Steve Wright, ladies and gentlemen, he was on my show probably a year ago at this time. It's
Wow.
about 1 year exactly, almost 1 year for me, five years
One,
for
four.
him.
We'll
Well,
go
the
in, we'll
rest of
get into
that
that too.
year plus 4 years, so almost 5 years by the time this episode comes out. And we're going to
Oh my
explain what that
goodness.
means. If you read the title of the episode or you just clicked it out of curiosity, you're going to find out. We're going to get into Mr. Wright, who is here with us. He read a book that he reads a lot of books, actually. He reads a lot of books, which is important. You know, I've talked about being lifelong learners, but he read a book
Mm.
that changed his life and changed his year into 4 years. It's not a paid promotion for this book. I'm actually quite broke, but we're gonna get into it. So, Mr. Wright, just a little bit of background on you first before
Oh,
we get into the book that we have so foreshadowed and alluded to here.
well, I want to start by saying a big thank you to you, Mr. Whiskey. It's not often I go on a podcast with a hat on, so I did put on the Jamaica hat.
Yeah.
Can I take it off?
If you want to, it is.
It casts a shadow on my face, so because of
Oh
my lighting.
yeah.
So I just
Well,
didn't want
yeah,
to.
so
I,
basically what you've revealed now by taking your hat off is, ladies and gentlemen, we have sorry, I should have done the introduction probably. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very handsome, talented guest today, bald by choice, Steve Wright. But the last time you were on the show, ladies and gentlemen, check out the YouTube for that because you had on a sporty hat, courtesy of Justin Workman from Oklahoma.
yes.
Unless that was a
You,
different hat. You have quite the
No,
collection
no, it
yourself.
was a very stylish kind of trilby hat that I
Oh
bought
yeah.
in, I want to say in Oklahoma, Salem, somewhere in Oklahoma. We were
Yeah.
really nice. Went to a proper millinery store that just did hats, and it was absolutely fantastic. Very thoughtful gift by Justin and one of my other co-workers.
And a
So it
former
was a
guest of the Couple of Nukes podcast, Parenting with Faith, Teaching Deaf. Check out that episode.
mm, very cool. I love Mr. Whiskey. Always got a show on there. But
Yeah.
yes, this is me, Steve Wright. I'd like to think that I'm a good friend of Mr. Whiskey now, dear friend. We've been compadres in the podcasting space for as long as I've been podcasting. So kudos to him for being an inspiration in that space and for the work that he does. And my background, I have a strange accent a little bit. I'm a Londoner by birth, spent formative years in the US, was in California for about 16 years in total, a couple of trips backwards and forwards, raised my family there, two daughters, one American, one British, and I have strong ties to Jamaica. So my mother is there and a dear lady to me. So I'm looking forward to seeing her at Christmas.
You gonna do a holiday interview with her?
Ooh, I probably will actually. I will have, it will be a three generation, it will be a three-generation Christmas. My daughter is coming with me.
The American one or the British one? Or in other terms, the better one or the worse one?
They don't hear that. You never have a father choose between his daughters.
Oh yeah.
But it's my younger daughter who is the
Who is
US
the
born
favorite?
one.
Oh, okay.
No, the US born one. And so yeah, we're looking forward to that. Three generations around the dinner table in Jamaica, which will be absolutely a blast. So I think I will probably set up something whereby we
Yeah, I'm
at
already
least
here waiting
capture
for
it.
you. I mean, you can see the backdrop. I'm already in Jamaica.
That looks like Ocho Rios right there, a little North
That's
Island
exactly
action.
where I am. You guessed it right on the nose.
Oh,
I'm glad. No, I have no idea where this is, but yeah. Is that your daughter who was a podcast guest who does the furniture design you mentioned once before?
oh, that's the older, that's my older daughter. She's based in
Yeah, that's the
Cambodia
other
now.
daughter. Yeah.
No, she's doing great. She's doing great. Adina Wright Design, Adena Wright Design.
Yeah, it's funny. I was gonna give you a hard time for saying Londoner. I was like, is that a word? But I realized I've called myself a New Jerseyan more than one time. So you just add letters on to the end, I'm a Georgian, a Floridian, right? You kind of Californian, you just
Mm,
add stuff on. So yeah, a Londoner. We
Londoner works,
And if
but
you want advice on how to navigate the streets of London, the previous episode with Steve Wright is a little gold mine for that. But we're here today to talk about, we mentioned, Steve, that you've lived 4 years this year. You've had five birthdays, one 2 days ago that I posted about on Instagram that you didn't respond to. And then also the four mini birthdays within your 4 year. So tell us, what is this book that we've kind of hinted at? We're all in suspense. I'm in
yeah.
suspense. I want to know what this book is. Uh,
Okay, and you just bastardized the whole thing, the whole setup for the book. But actually, it's called the 4 week. It's the 4 week year. P. Moran and another author, and the 4 week year is really
I thought
about.
it was 12
It
weeks.
talks about compressing.
I thought it was 12 weeks.
What did I say? 4 week.
You said 4 week. I thought it was
Oh,
four
sorry.
12
That's
weeks.
the other book. That's Tim
Oh,
Ferriss's
that's a different
4 Hour
book. You got
Workweek.
so many books going on right now.
No, I did actually mean the 12-week year,
Okay.
which talks about periodization. It's touted as being the way to compress 12 months into 12 weeks. And that's very catchy and a little bit baity, but that's a fair assessment. In essence, without sort of going into the book too much, it really speaks about periodization, of thinking of things in the appropriate period to get something done. That was my biggest takeaway from reading the book. And actually, it's not exclusively my thinking around the timeline. And I have a cohort group that follows a 12-week cycle of working together and formulating goals. It's not exclusively the 12-week year, so I don't want to necessarily just land it all on one premise, but looks at a lot of things that come into tying in vision and beliefs and setting outcomes that are much more in line with achievement. So for me, it was a matter of working in 12-week cycles with a week in between to review, reflect, re energize, and any other R that I can think of that will start revitalize and really just have that break in between the 12-week periods to kick off the next one. So it does mean that it's similar to quarters of a year, which is fine. And I happen to start at the beginning of 2025. So I am about to start my fourth year, 12-week period within 2025. And it really speaks to the opportunity to set resolutions, to set goals 4 times in the year rather than once. And we all know what it's like to set New Year's resolutions. Most of us don't even call it that anymore. We kind of shy away from that whole premise of, I'm going to promise the world something that I'm going to deliver in 12 months, and I will forget about it within 3 weeks and then excuse the rest of my time for the year and put things off. We often put things off because we think the timeline is giving us plenty of time to get it done. And then there becomes a time where we didn't get the inertia to get it started. Therefore, we start late and then we question whether we're going to do it. Before you know it, you're halfway through a calendar year and you're thinking, well, it's too late to get started. Then you're in the back end of a year, like we are now, of 2025, and you think, oh, I just haven't got the time to get to it. It's holiday season's around the corner. I might as well
Yep.
just get started in 2026. I'll bump it out a year. And the opportunity to break those periods down into smaller chunks, whereby you work at a faster cadence, allows you to reflect and to plan, to iterate more often. You go through things more often, and it allows you to sort of think of things in a better cycle, a smaller chunk, which means, like I said, I get 4 Januaries, I get 4 Easters, I get 4 Christmases opportunities to actually think about what I'm doing throughout the year in a way that's manageable and achievable and actionable. So it's been great. And the power of a cohort in that setting is not to be underestimated. People on a similar journey, not necessarily the same destination, but on the same journey. And that allows us to share our wins, our lessons, our hopes and dreams, values, beliefs, goals in a way that allows us to really support each other in a powerful way. And it's getting results. It's putting things out there, whether it's a health goal, a financial goal, a business goal, somewhere in something to do with your well-being, relationship, having that focus in a way where you size the goal, you right size the goal for the period is much more conducive for that goal to be achieved rather than having this thing where you look at the 12 months of the calendar of the year and you go, oh, I hope I can get it done by whenever. And you're not always sure on the steps to take. So this is a much faster way, a much better way to work through the year and less stress. It's nicer that way.
Of course, and I think it's interesting that we, in the same amount of time, given let's say a month, we can somehow overestimate and underestimate how much time that is. It's all about perception. I think what's interesting is you look at studies, and a lot of them say actually, as a teacher, if you give too much time in advance notice for a deadline, everyone will wait till the last moment because they continually say to themselves, I have more time, I have more time, I'll get to it, and then creeps up on them. And I do want to pivot to a little bit of my background as a nuclear operator in the schooling and the pacing of that. And it was a big wake-up call. Unfortunately, the smarter and more successful you are, the more ability you have to procrastinate, and it kind of enables you to become lazier. Which what I'm trying to say is my caveat is if you're smart and successful, you need more discipline. Here's why. At least what we saw in the nuclear program, we were a 4.0 GPA scale, and people in the fleet would say, I'd rather have a 2.5 or 2.5 stay alive kind of guy, right? That's the cutoff. 2.5 stay alive, have a 2.5er than a guy with a 4.0 GPA. Here's why. The people who were at the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, bottom of the torpedo shaft, however you want to say it, the plus side was they had mandatory study hours. So on top of the classes, which were, sometimes 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours, these are long days with the same instructor sometimes for that whole time. It's intense school. After that, they were militarily ordered to study to maintain or improve their GPA. The people who were smart, the smartest people, voluntary study hours, right? So they would just go home, play video
Mm.
games. You get to the fleet, now you have to work, you're on the ship, you got to do this maintenance. Well, the 2.5 guys, like, well, this is nothing to me, man. I'm used to working long hours. I'm used to working hard. They developed a work ethic. The
Mm.
people who were smart, what I heard was people were afraid of working with the smartest people because they were more likely and historically would take shortcuts that went around the manuals that would lead to people getting in trouble, people getting masted to write-ups, right?
Mm.
Because their thinking is, I'm smart. How do I maximize my time at work to maximize my time of not being at work?
Yeah.
So it's interesting how, when you take what you have and how you can use your time with it. Again, like I mentioned, that teaching, if you set a deadline too far out, everyone waits till last minute.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I've been in that same mindset you mentioned, like, oh, I'm going to start next year or when the time is right. And a lot of us are chasing a time that's never going to happen. The
Mm.
times are as right as you make them to be. And
Mm.
I say that because on a recent episode, he shared a saying that really stuck with me. He goes, the best time to plant an oak tree was like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
The second best time is today.
Yeah.
And I heard that and I said, that's so amazing. I continually pushed off going to the gym. I said, I'm such a skinny, frail guy back when I was 120 pounds my whole life. I said, I really don't want to be caught weak or tired or sore. And, I don't want to go to the gym being so scrawny. I'll just wait till I'm heavier and more muscular in life. Somehow, like, it's just going to magically happen to go. And I realized if I had started that day that I push off, where I'm at now and where I could have been are so it's really sad to think about. People always push off and it's like, I should have started this so long ago. Okay, well then start today
Mm,
because just waiting for that ideal time is just not going to happen.
mhm,
And I can relate to whether it's a 12-week year or a four, I couldn't imagine a 4 week year. That's too much. But I was given a month to get in, special forces shape for the charity I was participating in. And all I could think was a month is nowhere near enough time. So when you're put in a deadline, you really look at things. So what really changed for you, Mr. Wright? Like, did you set your goals instead of saying, all right, I've got 5 months, 6 months? You said, I need to finish this in the next 12 weeks or the year's over and like the project has to be scrapped. Like, what was the mindset you kind of had around
mm,
how you set your goals because of the pressure of the time period? Like, did you restrict yourself to it has to be done this year? I cannot do this in the next 12-week year. It has to be done this
mm.
year. So now I only got 12 weeks. What am I going to do?
Yeah. Before I answer that, there was a few things that you said about the study, and when a deadline is extended, you work to the end of the deadline. And it made me think of the two typical laws around time. Parkinson's law says that work will expand to fill the time. If you give somebody 3 weeks on a project, they will take 3 weeks on a project. If you
Mm.
give another team with the same resources a week on the same project, they will take a week to deliver on that project, because people will find ways to think that, like you said, they'll either start late, which is a typical way in schools. You'll start the project late because you'll work back from the deadline back rather than from today forward. So that's a well established law, if you like, Parkinson's law.
Which is
The other one
ironic
is,
to me. It's ironic to me because I don't know about you, Steve. I'm the kind of guy, let's get it over with so I can enjoy my free time with no stress, nothing on the back burner. Like it's done, it is finished. And it just reminds me of the tortoise and the hare, right? Just thinking of like the hare is that successful nuclear operator who has the smarts, and not even nuclear operators, whatever you are, if you're an IT guy or anything else, right? You're smart, you're successful, you can get stuff done faster. So you start, you stop, you finish. Whereas as the tortoise is like those nuclear operators with a 2.5 GPA who just worked consistently, and I love that metaphor. It just expands to fill the whole time. It's
yeah.
just so true.
The other law associated with that is actually attributed to Bill Gates, Gates' law, which says that people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade.
Mm.
I think that speaks more to building things of value and worth. And you think you can get a lot of stuff done in a year, when in actual fact, it takes a longer time to build those deeper qualities. And your story about the operators again speaks to that mindset of grit, that grittiness, being able to stick at something even when it's hard, or being recognized for the effort that you put into something rather than the outcome. The GPA, the 4.0 GPA folks tend to be lauded for their smarts, for their outcome, rather than working hard necessarily. If smarts naturally comes to them, then they're just getting the results, the accolades for being a 4.0. The 2.5 that is working on their grades is working hard. And like you said, that translates into, once they finish school, into deployment or their
And it's
actual
like
work
if you have
assignments.
someone with lived experience and someone who just has seniority because they went to college and got a degree in whatever it is, but they don't have the lived experience. Like in the military, I could have been on the electrical operator watch and I could have had an engineering officer to watch who was an officer who, yeah, he went to college and he's supposed to know more than me, but he's never stood this watch before. And he could tell me, hey, do XYZ with the submarine. And because I was in a situation, he said, do XYZ. I said, XYZ is stupid and dangerous for all of us. Let's do ABC because that makes sense. And he was like, it was kind of like, I'm the officer, right? So you're like, all right, officer, whatever you say, I do XYZ. Even higher ranker guy comes busting in the room. Why did you do XYZ? I said, well, I wanted to do ABC, but a guy back there said XYZ. He goes, who's standing to watch, you or him? I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay, okay, okay. I'm just like, I'm just like a freshly 18-year-old, going on 19-year guy who's somehow in a mock submarine being yelled at by a lot of people. I mean, but I think you talk about, yeah, I like the example too of lived experience versus
Mm,
just having read all the books and having done it, such a big difference. And that's why you could have someone with a college degree and you could have someone who just did all the work, two different mindsets. And
yeah.
they preface Nuke School with that. They give a big speech. And they said, everyone sitting here, all y'all nuclear operators in the making, listen, all of y'all are the kind of people where you went to high school, you barely paid attention, you got A's on everything regardless. You just are naturally smart people with good memories. This isn't that place. This, even the smart people like you have to show up, you have to do the work. You cannot just get by being naturally smart. And the amount of people we lost who didn't listen to that, myself included, I
Mm,
mean, it was great. I had that revelation much sooner than some people. Some people they're proud of was like, no, I'm not going to study. I was like, oh shoot, if I got to study and make notes for the first time, no shame in it. But some people want to always show. You mentioned the outcome over the effort. Some people want to show
mm,
all the time, hey, I got the outcome with no effort, and they take more pride in that than the actual quality of the outcome.
yeah. And I think that's part of the Aesop's fable about the tortoise and the hare is the impression that the hare was thinking about how fast it could run the journey and worked back from the end and said, I'm so fast, I can start this much later and still beat this animal, beat the tortoise. And
Instead of
because
let me
it's
just
using
do it, let me just do it and
instead
then
of
take
just
my nap.
instead of just do it like you
So
said, if
stupid.
if if it literally just did it, it would be sitting at the finish line. It will be sitting at the finish line waiting for the tortoise to run the race. Actually, and you know what, that's a very much of a story. I've run 3 marathons in my life,
One
and
coming up this
probably
year.
four, no, none recently. But the interesting thing is that the whole premise of starting as you mean to finish and setting that pace. You start when you start and you go on as you mean to finish. As opposed to some people, I saw athletes that burst off, their times were probably similar to mine, but they went off guns blazing. And guaranteed the marathons are the greatest leveler for an athletic run. It's a great leveler. Everyone gets through. And actually, at the end of the race, everyone's cheering for everybody else. It's not one of those things where you're trying to compete, unless you're an elite athlete, of course. But the rest of us are just trying to get through this major life
Right.
milestone of completing the marathon. And then those guys ran off too fast, so they burned out so quickly. The elites on a run, they start first, which is right. They have to start first because they would be behind everybody and they will be passing everybody else. By the time I finished my marathon, the winner of the San Diego Marathon was already on a plane to go home to Kenya. I was
Wow.
still running. I was probably still running while
Wow.
this guy was on a plane. That's the hare that starts off and runs the race that they're supposed to run,
Yeah.
as opposed to taking your time and not finishing. But you asked me about what this meant about goals in terms of the concepts of the sort of the 12-week year or the 12-week window. And what the biggest lesson for me, having done this a number of cycles in 2025, is that it's made me value the work of setting appropriate goals and having the goal that is so rich and tangible and palpable in terms of how it feels in your body, how you envision it in your mind, how you imagine how you're going to be once you've achieved the goal, what it means in terms of your value, your outlook, how you represent what you do. All of those things come into play when setting the goal. It's not as trivial as saying, I'm going to meet quarter 3 revenue target and I'm going to get it done this sort of way.
Right.
Not to dismiss financial or goals in those arenas, but on a personal level, they're for me, there needs to be a strong attachment to the goal so that you are pulled through the 12-week year as opposed to being pushed, feeling like you're struggling, you're pushing a boulder uphill because you're not really aligned with the goal and you won't think outside of the box to get the resources together to make the goal happen. My favorite goal of 2025, and it's interesting because I'll do 4 12-week years in 2025, and I'll be in Jamaica at Christmas, and I'll be recounting my year 2025, and the highlight that will probably still be the highlight of 2025 was taking my mother to Paris on her 80th birthday. That was a 12-week goal that I'd set at the end of March. And we brought it to fruition in April. She turned 80 and we were on top of the Eiffel Tower. I saw that clearly as day. As I'm looking at you, I saw that image before it happened. I felt what it was going to feel like. I imagined it very clearly. I work with a coach and we talked about this. We shared that. We worked on beliefs around making it happen. What are the fears about it? The fears of success, the fears of failure, what needs to be put into place? Who are you going to be? How are you going to show up as a person that has achieved this goal? What does it mean to your mum? What does it mean to you? What does it say about you? And all of those things culminated in having the things, the resources. It took time, it took money, it took moving things around in terms of schedules, it took focus. All of those things came together. And on her birthday, we were at the top of the Eiffel Tower, even to the point that at the day when we were lining up, we were queuing up at the bottom of the Eiffel Tower. The top level was closed because of the weather wasn't good. The weather was kind of cloudy and they closed the top part of the tower. And the line was so long that we were in line for maybe an hour and a half. And by the time we got to the ticket counter, they'd opened the top level. So we were able to go
Amen.
to the top. And just thinking all of these things came to fruition. And we were on top of the Eiffel Tower on her birthday. And I called my coach. It was that powerful in terms of having somebody alongside for the journey. That's the power of the cohort and having someone hold you accountable, believe what you believe and share that vision with you. So for me, the big thing is the vision. It has to be sized appropriately for a 12-week window because it's not that it's no point having a goal bigger than the window because sometimes you're working on something that takes many stages, but making sure that it fits and it's close enough to you for urgency and clarity, but it's far enough out so you can track it and it's a worthwhile goal. Getting up and making breakfast may not be a 12-week goal unless you've got some impediment and you're working through something that a health issue whereby your goal would be to walk unaided or to have a lifestyle choice or a lifestyle change. Again, I don't want to dismiss anybody's goal at whatever level,
Right.
but the thing for me is the big alignment of the vision. The other things can all fall into place, and you'll be surprised how many resources and people will align with you when your goal is very, very clear.
So would you say that with the 12-week year, what you did wasn't double your work ethic and risk burning out or just work much harder, but you changed the way you manage your expectations to be more realistic in terms of fitting that goal? So would you say if you don't do the 12-week year again, let's say you just do a regular year, do you feel like you are now much better suited for goal setting and expectation management because you had to do it on such a smaller, more confined and realistic scale?
I think, good question. I think that the the book it talks about this. It's the power of periodization. It's the period that makes it work. A lot of people live their life according to periods. Whether you could be a financial analyst and you work to the tax year, and the tax year in the US and the tax year in the UK may be different. We start out in April, and some companies start with the calendar year. So they start their tax year in January, for example. You may be an educator. So your academic year is a different periodization than the calendar year because you've got a long summer and you've got semesters and
I
so on.
petition this. This has always bothered me, Steve. The calendar year should start in September. I have always felt that way very passionately. If I ever become president of the United States, I'm going to make calendars great again because I'm going to make September should be the beginning of the year. That's when everyone's off of summer vacations, school's back in session, the fall happens. Why do we start in the middle of the year in a dead, cold, disgusting heart of the winter of January?
I
No
can,
offense to all the
I,
January people. Does it, it makes more sense to me to have September be the beginning of the year.
I can answer. I can answer that. It's the simple answer is that the Roman Empire set our
I'm not a
Gregorian
Roman.
calendar.
I'm
So,
Italian Irish, okay?
so,
I got
so
Hebrew written on me. I
somebody,
don't
so
I'm not a Roman. They're gone mostly.
somebody had to
Like
set it. Somebody had to set it,
and I'm gonna reset it. And I'm getting rid of daylight savings times. We're doing all the stuff.
oh, you got me on daylight
And I'm
savings.
gonna make
That's
Monday the first day in the calendar physically, and Sunday the last day in the calendar physically, instead of most people's rest day being the first day of the week, that when you physically look at a calendar, it's the last day. Do you know what I'm talking about?
yeah. No, I
Does this
don't.
stuff not keep you up at night? I can't sleep, Steve. I can't
I
sleep.
well, you know what? Everything that you're saying is about the
Aesthetics.
perception, the perception, the perception of a period,
Yeah.
and people work to the period that works for them. If you're in academia, if you're a teacher, you work to an academic school year. There are, a woman's cycle may follow the lunar year, the lunar month, for example, rather than a calendar month. There are things that are just either in nature that have their own sort of set period, and there are things that we have for organizational purposes. We have 12 months, we have 7 days, we have, we work the week as 7 days, like I said. So there are things out there that set the period. The question becomes, does everything that you do have to fit into that box just because the box is there? The box is arbitrary.
Right.
The mindset of thinking of 12 weeks like we think of 12 months is really just a matter of mindset. People say, oh, it's like agile. You're just messing with the calendar. You're just making 4 week years into 4 quarters of a calendar year. Sure. But when I post on LinkedIn every week, as if it was the month of that 12-week
Yeah.
period. So I have a January, which is the first week of the 12-week year. And I have a December, which is the 12th week of the 12-week year.
Yeah.
And it may just be me, but for me, I think of that period and I liken it to being able to condense in some ways. Sometimes you're compressing time because it feels like you're conducting a week and calling it a month and you feel like there's some compression. Other times you just can't make things happen quicker than they can. And that's totally
Yeah.
fine too. But periodization is a focusing tool. And that focusing tool helps you align and assign an appropriate goal to the period that you're focused on. It's Parkinson's law with a little twist, a mindset twist that says, I'm treating my January as a week because then I can focus more on what I want to get done. I can assign activities or assign a goal in accordance to the period that I have. And I'm just choosing to make it feel smaller. Feeling smaller is important. How you feel about a period is very important because we do this with a calendar year every year. The world does
Yeah.
this with New Year's resolutions. They do this with the ball drop on New Year's Eve or the fireworks, and everyone celebrates a new year. And ironically, like Gates says, we overestimate what we can do in it by setting all these big, fantastical,
Yeah.
and sometimes not well aligned goals. Once people stop asking us about them, normally second week of January, I think the 17th of January is the day when most resolutions have been forgotten or given up on. The gym membership starts to lapse. All of those good intentions start to go by the wayside.
That girl
You
you
know,
kissed at midnight is gone.
yeah, mistletoe is gone. You know, all the shops that got Valentine's,
Yeah, that's coming up. You got to get a new girl for Valentine's Day now.
and
Steve Wright did an
and
episode on how to do that.
there you go. And before you know it, it's like on the Hallmark treadmill. I mean, Hallmark
Yeah.
have their own periodization. They go from event to event to event
Yeah.
throughout the year to make you forget what you wanted to get done. And it's important to think about something in a period that works for you. I'm not saying 12 weeks is ideal for everybody or anybody. I know people, if they do a 4 month sprint, they split the year into three. So they'll have a four
Mm,
month window and a 4 month window and a four
mm.
month window. To me, it's really the periodization and the focus. If you have your goals, values, and beliefs aligned, and you have it within a container that works, then you have a chance to iterate on that. The first time you do it, you might be off. The second time you do it, you get better. The third time you do it, life gets in the way and you have a crappy period. Yeah. My year 3 was good. Year 2 was a bit strange for me, but that's okay because I've got a chance to iterate. I've got a chance to go through this again. I will be calling my 12-week periods years moving forward. I've done it for this calendar year. And again, I'm confusing people by switching years and months
Yeah,
and
yeah.
days and weeks. But for this calendar year 2025, I would have done 4 cycles, 4 iterations.
Mm.
I won't properly evaluate the value of this effort until I've done at least 7.
Yeah.
So it'll be until middle of next year, towards the end of next year, 2026, where I'll go, well, is this been good for me or not? Because you need to give things time to work before you evaluate. Sometimes we have knee-jerk response. We do it once, it didn't work. We're podcasters. We know what
Yeah.
that's like. You know,
Yeah.
first show doesn't go anywhere, and then the second show you're struggling, and then the third show you think, well, it's not for me, and then you're done. We know the power of consistency. We know the power of grace, having something work long enough so that grace can show its,
I
grace
don't
and
know who she
faith can
is,
show its
but
power.
she sounds great. Well, Steve, what I want to say is what I realize is really what you did, what that book is about, what all these other books that have periodization is about. It's about breaking free from the constrictions of what our society is already built on, which is, like you said, we all feel this pressure. By next year, it's kind of like you're a loser if you didn't meet your goals this year, right? Because
Mm,
people have set this 12-month window for us. If by 2026 you didn't publish that book or get that job or get that girlfriend or whatever it may be, people are like, dude, you had a whole year. What a loser. But to your point, we aren't saying, well, hey, is that really attainable? You know, rather than breaking our lives and our goals set on periodizations that are actually attainable for us and aligned with us, we are so constricted to the 12-month. What you did is you broke free of that and you actually shortened it. You said, hey, I want to set goals more frequently, keep myself accountable more often, and have shorter years.
mm,
What I've started to do with my periodization, yes, I still focus on like 2025 to 2026, but mine is actually based off of podcasting conferences and events. So I say by the time I go to that same conference next year, I want 3 more books, 100 more episodes, whatever it is. I base my periodizations off my public appearances at conferences, right? Because when I do my goals, I don't feel judged on a year-to-year basis. If I'm doing stuff, I don't have a lot of people in an inner circle who are like, hey, man, you had a year to do that. What I do have is, hey, I haven't seen you since the last conference. What's new? Every time I attend this virtual event on Wednesdays. It's pretty cool. I don't always make it, but the goal is like, hey, what's new? 500 episodes. That's what's new,
mm.
or a book. I think one of the things with this is I feel like it's gotten you to kind of focus on yourself and your expectations rather than what others want for you. And you've been able to really hone in on that.
Yeah, that's very powerful observation on that because you want to have cycles that work for you. And like you said, that's great to have milestones or mile markers that make sense to you rather than just arbitrary mile markers because everybody's got them at the same, the same distance apart or the same length of time or whatever. So again, typically calendar year, sometimes businesses talk about quarters of the year, and that's fine. Interestingly enough, they are just fractioning off the calendar year. My argument is that I'm thinking of a 12-week year as its own entity. It's 12
Yeah.
weeks with a week for review. The upside of what you shared, it's your best way to get the outcomes or work towards the outcomes that you want. And you will set reasonable expectations based on past experience or bandwidth or resources that say between this event and this event, this is going to happen. And you'll set it accordingly. And that's you in your space. And that's perfect for you. You'd have to do a few iterations before you kind of get it down. But you know that in terms of this event to this event, I'm going to get this done. The 12-week year, especially around a cohort, is a little bit more standardized in terms of it's always 12.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think about the power of accountability and the cohort because the analogy is that it's a similar journey, like we're all on the same plane or train, and we're fellow passengers on this journey, and like you would on a plane, you sit next to somebody and you strike up a conversation, you ask them where they're going, and they're telling you they're going to a conference, they're going to see family, they're going to
Are
see a
you free
loved
later
one.
tonight?
They, well, that doesn't happen in my cohort, but
Oh, okay.
in the analogy, you
Sorry,
could
I
strike
just
up
heard
that
we're
kind
sitting
of
on a plane and you
conversation.
strike up conversation like,
What?
"Hey, what do you think of this first class food? It's pretty good, huh?
So you
Or I could
totally
take you out for
derailed.
a steak tonight."
You, you totally derailed my analogy
Yeah,
there,
my
but my
bad. Sorry.
metaphor.
That's
But the
not what I
idea,
say. When I sit on a plane next to someone, I always say, "Do you listen to podcasts?" And if they say yes or no, either way, I say, "Well, there's an amazing podcast called The One-to-One Thing with Steve Wright." And I say, I'm currently doing a 12-week year. And by the end of this 12-week year, I plan on guesting on that show. And then they're like, well, I hope you make it. And that was a couple of years ago. So,
so so all of that to say the metaphor of taking a journey with fellow passengers with different destinations means that you're not determining where they go. You're not telling them where to go or what they should do when they get there. You're just sharing the journey with them. And the ability to strike up a conversation and have some camaraderie along the way is so powerful because it helps you consolidate what you want to do when you get there. It helps them find support in their goals and dreams and aspirations when they get there. And you're working within that same construct of a 12-week period, but you're actually driving towards your own personal goals and outcomes with your set of beliefs and values. So it's not a matter of group think. You're not just there because you're trying to get to the same end result. This is not, it's not a get rich quick. It's not about trying to find a million viewers
yeah,
on
don't start a
whatever
podcast if
platform.
you want to get rich quick. I'll tell you
Yo,
that. But
yes, yeah.
one thing I want to talk about, you mentioned authenticity,
Mm,
transparency. And I think one of the downsides I would see with this 12-week year is people burning out, right? They're pushing themselves too much, setting unrealistic goals. We kind of talked about that. And it made me think of the ship I was on. So my ship, American side, the aircraft
mm,
carriers, they're built, they go out for XYZ amount of years. They go back, they get worked up on, go back out XYZ amount of years, do it again, and then, that's it pretty much.
mm,
My ship was in the yards when COVID happened, right? So that was a time where like, hey, can we even have all the sailors, working? How many people can we have
mm.
work on a ship? Then you have shipyard, which is civilian owned and run, right? So we can't say, hey, y'all got to come work on this ship. If big civilian world says no, they're not allowed to, it became a very, how do we do this operation? But there was a milestone. After XYZ amount of time in the yards, the ship is supposed to be in a livable condition where sailors can move back on out of the barracks. Ideally, the sooner you have all the sailors on the ship, the more work that gets done. That's the idea. And it's just how it's supposed to be. You're filling up the barracks, XYZ. Because of all the COVID delays, my ship, from what I've heard, was not livable. But instead of telling Big Navy we didn't meet this quota, this mile marker, they moved everyone on into hazardous conditions with electrical hazards, hot work hazards, toxic gas hazards, with not working water, with not working ventilation, and people got injured and sick. People killed themselves. We had 3 suicides in a week. We had multiple in a year, and the ship went under investigation. What happened is the MCPON came and gave a speech in response to the unlivable conditions and the suicides. This was the speech he gave. Quote, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, lower your standards. You're not living in a foxhole. So he gets removed. And then it was a big public lashback, all this controversy. But let's look at it from the very basic level. If Big Navy, or I guess Little Navy, my ship, right, had been
Mm,
honest with Big Navy, big government, and said, we did not meet this milestone, instead of trying to forcibly turn in not ready results at that milestone, it could have actually prevented death. People killed themselves. There were
yeah.
lives taken and injuries had, right?
Mm,
So when you talk about transparency, authenticity, not comparing yourself, setting these goals, I think it's important for anyone doing a periodization that you don't make it, so to speak, a matter of life and death. At the end of the
mm,
day, like, yes, you should try to meet it, but we talked earlier about 12 weeks might be too soon for you. Maybe your periodization is 3, 4 month quarters. Maybe you just split the year in half. Maybe you're a 6 month kind of person.
mm,
So I think it's important if you don't meet those goals, one, don't try to forcibly cram it into that 12 week and then it results in something bad. Maybe it's a podcast episode or a book that wasn't ready. You put your book out and now it stinks. You get a
yeah.
1 star review
Mm,
from Steve Wright online, right? That's not a good thing to do. He would never do that. But my point there being is like it's trial and error and exploration. So I would say be gracious for yourself until you find that cadence that you can work at. And I just
yeah.
think that's a real life example of they had a periodization of at XYZ amount of times in the yards, you will now be in livable conditions, right? And
Mm,
that has historically been the relative standard. But when conditions come in the way, you have to accept those, right? So they should have said, hey, this whole COVID thing, like, there's no handbook for this. This is
yeah.
new. So let me use this to pivot to you actually had a death in your family, Steve. And I mean, how did that throw your 12-week cycle off track, or how were you able to deal with that? Was there any part of you that you were like, hey, forget this 12-week year stuff. Like, I need to sit back and reflect. I know you posted about it on LinkedIn
Yeah.
and everything, but I
It,
just want to
it,
unpack that a little more.
yeah, you know what? And as you said, I've heard you tell part of that story about the ship not being ready. And I think that the two things, again, I'm banging this drum really hard with regards to the vision being in place so strong that you get pulled rather than you're pushing. The reason for that is that when you are pulled through your vision,
Mm,
y- you are in alignment with it. The alignment of the vision is much more sustainable and it's much more complete. It's holistic. It encompasses lots of things. Me getting my mum to the top of the Eiffel Tower is a bold statement. It's something I can share. It's something that I can actually mark off as being complete or not complete, which is important in a goal. It must have a criteria of completion or satisfaction. It needs to be met or not met. No judgment if you don't meet it to the point in your ship. If you set something and you don't meet it, be upfront and say that you didn't meet it. You might have to go back and do your root cause analysis. You might have to go refresh something, but be real. Don't pretend that you could do something when you actually couldn't do it. And that's leads to people being maligned to the vision and actually causing injury or hazardous environments for people. So in my case, I had an uncle that passed, and it was a difficult time in the sense that he was close enough, but a little bit estranged, but still close enough in terms of immediate family. And it's not one of those things whereby something comes up. Well, anything can come up on the journey
Yeah.
that could make you question the validity of the journey.
Mm.
And sometimes you just got to mitigate for that. You either got to take a detour, take a stop. If you're driving somewhere and you have a flat tire, you don't go back home. You fix the tire on the side of the road, or you call recovery services. You get the car towed, you get it fixed, you get back on the road, you take an overnight stay, and you get to where you're going a little bit later. There's things that you'd mitigate to get to the goal. The thing is, if your vision for the destination wasn't strong enough, you'll go home. You'll, you'll can the vision, you'll can the goal.
Mm.
I think the important thing is that with a period that aligns the drive and the outcome to the goal, it means that there are fewer things that are going to derail you. And if they do, you're dealing with a shorter period and potentially a shorter goal, if you like. Something could derail me for a 12-week period, but it won't ruin my year. It wouldn't ruin 2025 because I'm not looking at it in the context of 2025. I'm looking at it in the context of this period. And I'm much closer to the goal. I'm much more aligned to the goal. I'm being pulled through the period with the goal. And as things come up, they're mitigated according to what needs to be done. I don't question turning around or not doing something. So it's sad if it's a loss of loved ones and family members, could be major illnesses. Life, we're made to suffer. There's an element of suffering in life that is just part of living. That doesn't mean you don't set the goal. It doesn't mean you don't think of the period. It doesn't mean that you don't strive to be better and do things that support you and your values. So you got to do what you got to do.
Right. And with you coming up on your last year of this year, what are some goals, if you don't mind sharing, that you're looking at that, like, has this changed the kind of goals you set, or are you still setting the same kind of goals, just within a different frame?
As I think I get, it's the bite of the cherries. I get four bites of the cherry. I
Is that like a
literally,
British
I'm looking
saying?
for, I'm looking for, it's a British thing. Yeah, I guess four bites. I get four times to make goals in a calendar year. In
Oh, okay.
2025, I've got four chances to make goals. Sometimes the goal that you set in a period doesn't get realized until another period. So, for
Mm.
example, my final part of the year, I mentioned the three generations of my
Right.
mother, my daughter, and myself in Jamaica. That goal was set for year three, the period that just finished. And so I am now looking at for this coming final 12 weeks of 2025. Some of my goals are around some value creation in my business activities. I have a coaching practice with the cohort that I want to develop more.
All
So
right,
there's some
coaching.
things of, sorry.
I said all right, coaching. I'm just plugging your
So
social media.
SAWhiteCoaching.com.
Oh,
Uh,
I say saw, but it's also it's also
it's
correct. If you say
so
saw
right.
right coaching, it's the same spelling. So
It's the same spelling. It's the
when
same
I
spelling.
read
And
it, saw right flows faster than SA right
SA right.
coaching. So
Yes.
that's why
And I,
I always say
I
saw,
always say SA right because it's my first
because
initials and my last
yeah,
name.
you created it.
So
That's
yeah,
why.
and you get, you could argue that if it's confusing for people, then it may not be the best marketing. But anyway, I'm not going to go there with that. I'm not changing my
Well,
marketing.
because right has a
In
right within it. So that's
Yes,
that's where the mix up
WRI,
is.
yeah, WRI needs to
You'll
change too.
always be right. Yeah.
So, so
Twice as
to
right.
answer to answer your question about goals, I've got some specific outcomes around income and value creation, and those two marry together because for me the goal has to have an element of input goals as opposed to output goals. I can't necessarily control what the output is, but I can
Mm.
control or actually influence the input to my goals. So that will tie into sort of my work activity, marketing activity, things that I can do, and then I will have metrics around that. So That's broadly where my goal set for this final 12 weeks of the calendar year 2025 is going to focus on. This is the second time now that we're having a cohort. Last 12-week period, there was a group of us that were together, and it was the first time doing it in that format, and it was totally game changing in terms of, again, the passengers on the journey and just having that energy of accountability, clarity, urgency, and tracking, making the cut, CUT, which is important in a group program. It's not group
Yeah.
coaching, it's a cohort, true cohort. We're passengers together, but we do have tools, we do have strategies, we bring learning in that space. So there is learning to be got from being together. But don't think of it as you rock up and you just get coached. It's not, it's not
Yeah, you gotta pay
that sort
Steve
of
for
mindset.
that. You gotta DM him on LinkedIn and ask how much he charges for that one.
There you go. Well, again,
Or
if
it's
that
free
if
for you if you outperform him in jump roping. I have heard that sales pitch before.
you are such a you're a master of segues. You are
I
you bring in
am.
the jump
I've never
roping.
actually rode on a Segway, but I do know how to skydive, which is what you and I do. If we were in a WWE wrestling competition, you and I would skydive out of the ceiling together.
I am looking forward to another skydive, but not this time of the year. It's too cold. But
In a
yeah,
different
setting the
periodization,
different period. Well, same periodization, just different part of
at
the
least for the next.
two.
Well, you said right, because you said you need seven total to make an assessment, but if you do it 2 years in a row, it would be eight altogether.
Yes. Yeah.
So why not just
I,
finish? I mean, Steve, I'm the kind of guy you should just finish that year, that
no,
last
I
year's year.
I feel to the point of being sustainable. I'm comfortable with the cadence of a 12-week period. I don't want it to become rote and mechanical like the calendar year has become for so many of us in
It
terms
kind of
of we
loses its
just,
purpose then of keeping you on
yes.
track. Yeah.
So the beauty of that, having a period that you can check in on and a period that you can have some agency in, is that you can assess whether it's working for you. Set the goal at the right tempo, at the right phase, at the right level to make it to make it achievable. Have people in your corner that are supporting you, cheering you on. Sometimes the comparison can be healthy in terms of giving you a
Right, right,
stretch, but ultimately this is something that it needs to be sustainable. I don't want one and done. You're not going to do this once and be done. It should spark an interest in working out what kind of goal you want in 12 weeks or what kind of period you want to achieve a goal. Sometimes you change the period to the goal. Sometimes you change the
right.
goal to the period. And again, it's the mindset that says, I can achieve, I want to achieve. I'm going to set the environment in order for me to achieve. And I'm not going to shoehorn myself into a 12-week, 4 quarters, 2 week
Right.
sprint, 4 week sprint. If you're in those sorts of agile spaces, that's fine if you do that. But there's a mindset game around periodization. So you definitely need to be focused on that.
It's not a challenge, it's a lifestyle. When you say one and done, it's like some people are looking at like, oh, I just got to complete this. Well, no, you're supposed to learn from it and use it. It's not like a, can I do this? Well, I
Yeah.
mean, you put anything in your mind to relatively, you can meet certain goals unless there are time sensitive things in any periodization, depending on how
Yeah.
much. I like you said input versus outcome, especially for the line of work that you and I do. But yeah, I think it's not a challenge, it's a lifestyle. But I got to backtrack, Steve, because I got a big question for you now, completely unrelated to anything.
Go for it.
You said you get 4 bites of your cherry. Now, I've eaten cherries very rarely. I'm not a big cherry guy in terms of the fruit. What cherry have you found that you could actually have 4 bites of? Cherries are like this big, they're like smaller than a golf ball. How do you have 4 bites of a cherry?
There are some no, there's some large cherries that you can get that that are
The size of a
unpitted,
tennis
that
ball?
not the size of a tennis ball. I mean, we're not talking about an apple here, but you can. It is a turn of phrase, so the literal element is not that. It's I, the
Right, but then
the
I would have said
ability
four
is
bites of cake. I mean, make it make sense, right? I'd love to have
well,
four times the amount of cake, but a cherry, like you couldn't even bite that 4 times. I mean, you'd have to like take a little nibble. I'm
Well,
saying it
it's
doesn't
the
make sense. Like it, I understand it's not literal or physical, but it should still make sense canonically. Like if you say, I can't think
it
of
could
any
be
things
four.
that make
Well,
sense.
you're taking this down some sort of rabbit hole here, but it could be four cherries that you bite that you take a bite out of. The idea is that there's something sweet and appealing, and you
Me.
get four opportunities, like you, and thank you, Mr. Whiskey, like yourself, and you get with a 12-week year within the calendar year of 2025, you get four opportunities to set the goal, to work towards its accomplishment, to feel the seasonality of a calendar year within a 12-week window. So
Right.
you get you, and I that's why I liken it to months equaling weeks, because I talk about them as if they have that seasonality within a
Right.
12-week window. The book doesn't do that. The book is pretty much basically it is carving up quarters in a sense and
Right.
giving you that.
So you're even
Um,
better than the book.
I'm not. I'm different. It's not about. It's not about being better than anything else. But I wanted to say that the comment about one and done. I'm over 60, so one and done doesn't work. One and done isn't good enough. If you're going to be around for a while, you've got to be doing things that have an eye on longevity. You have to do things that have an eye on legacy. You have to do things that have an eye on helping generations. One and done doesn't cut it because that is sometimes too myopic. It's too short sighted. It's too selfish. It has connotations
Yeah.
of who cares? I'm just getting what I need now, and that's it at any cost, often, not usually, but often. So the whole idea of having things in place that are sustainable, things that have value in themselves. I'm all about agency and mastery,
Right.
not mastery to lord over somebody, but mastery of yourself so that
Mm.
you can show up the best way you can be. So
Yeah.
whether it's podcasting, whether it's playing the cajon,
I
whether
say
it's
there's
salsa
two
dancing.
words that come to my mind when it comes to self-mastery and discipline. I'm not going to share them here, but what I will say is, Steve, I do want to say congrats on turning 64. You'll be turning 65 in your next period. And
I'm,
I think that's amazing. You can almost, do they have Social Security in Britain? You can start collecting soon, I think, right?
my birthday was my 62nd. You're making me older than I am because of the 12-week years,
Because of the
but
12
that's
week. Yeah.
okay.
Well, I thought you were turning 61. I guess I watched you turn 61 last year then.
Yes.
Oh. Well, happy on 62. I told everyone I knew you were 61. So, oh, I'm not going to correct it. I'll just leave it as it was. Thanks to you, well, LinkedIn told me it was your birthday, which told me that it was my other friend's birthday who shares the same
Yes.
birthday as you, who has
Yes.
also
My
been on the
twin.
show, Yayoi Komiyama, Brain the Belly. Go check
Yes.
it out. Good episode.
A lot of sustainability there too.
Oh,
Good,
yeah. Oh,
good
yeah.
content.
Yeah, but Steve, you told us just to summarize about perception, work ethic, periodization. Not you in your personal life did the 12 weeks. For those of y'all listening, whatever you find is your cadence, I think that's important. Goal setting. You talked about the benefits of it. I think, like you said, really harping on that importance of not having it become just a new routine. I think the point is to break out. So if you're someone who easily falls into routine, you might need to change your periodization every year, every 2, 3 years, whatever it is to keep you kind of active and in that new work environment. So I think that's important. I do want to do a little bit of shameless plugging for you. That's my job. So the managers who lead Facebook groups still going strong. Tell us about that, why you created it. You already talked about within the 12-year program, cohort and accountability. This is obviously a place for that, for idea bouncing and all of that. But, tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I the solopreneur journey can be very lonely in that
Yeah.
respect, and also the social media landscape is often pushing the finding your tribe. And for me, it was an opportunity to build a space. The managers who lead is a nod to my IT management background, but not exclusively managers in a occupational workplace environment, but also people who manage their households, manage their homes. We all have an element in that role of manager and also leader. Some of these things are very synonymous to each other. So the Facebook group is an opportunity for people to connect on there. So I post my regular drop in content into that space. People can watch and follow along. So there's the managers who lead, there's a Facebook group. I also have a presence on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my sort of platform of choice, whereby I have a weekly live drop-in event, which is like a virtual water cooler, and it's very open. It's great because I have sort of my most trusted people show up there when they can, how they can, and we discuss whatever's on our hearts. It really is literally
Sometimes, as I said in Steve's birthday post that he never looked at, that I made for him specifically, I told everyone to buy you vegan jam-filled donuts for your birthday. So that is something we talk about in the drop-in event. But no, like I said on the post, we have a lot of serious conversations as well on
yeah,
sexual assault awareness, men's mental health, current issues, and it just depends. And sometimes we're just laughing, having a good time, like you said. Never know who's going to be there, but it's very refreshing, from the doing the one-to-one thing. Oh, the one-to-one thing that we do is you do as a podcast host and as
yeah,
I do as a podcast host to then meet up with other like-minded individuals, bounce ideas off of each other,
yeah.
conversate, do stand-up comedy, all that.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's important to keep the human in the social media circles that you operate in.
Yeah.
It's too easy to fall prey to looking super glossy and having everything automated or AI assisted with you. AI assistant is fine. It's when it starts to replace you, replace your voice, your persona, that it becomes a potential challenge. I love the drop in. I love the fact that I literally rock up on a Wednesday afternoon, my time, 4:30, and turn on go live, and I'm sitting here in front of a screen, and I literally don't know if someone's going to show up or who's going to show up. And for me, that speaks to just being human. It's like walking into a room and you're the first one there at an event and you're not sure what's going to be going on. It's important that we
Yeah.
still have that connection and we show up in spaces where we can show up authentically as who we are. So it's very important, I think.
Only unlike when you show up at a room as the first guest at an event, imagine you had to start just like giving a speech to no one, because that's what it's like. Because I've caught
Yeah.
Steve on there by himself, talking to himself, hopefully talking to us, you know. But yeah, it's Wednesdays mornings. I've changed my calendar now, Steve. I've blocked out that time slot. I had a lot of people
Oh,
kept booking that time. I said, I don't want to miss my event anymore. It's my social outing of the week. I roll out of
beautiful.
bed, throw on a shirt and a hat, and then I'm there.
TMI right there.
Yeah, well, I sleep with pajama pants on. I mean, now that you've made me
Okay.
confess it,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you for
Hey, there
clarification.
are people there. I was podcasting with a gentleman one time. Maybe you can relate to this. I was podcasting, right? And he's in like a very nice dress shirt. We're having a good conversation. The Wi-Fi started going in and out. He's like, hold on, let me move to a different room. He picks up the camera and everything, and I just get a flash of like turquoise booty shorts. So I was like, oh, okay. Well then, camera's on, camera's on. There's a lot of, and you can look up on social media like Zoom fails and stuff. Luckily, I haven't had anything too outrageous where someone stands up. It's like, oh, Sarah, you don't have any pants on at all. You don't even have underwear on. I haven't caught no tidy whities or brown stained, underwear. Luckily, it's been pretty tame. Just a glimpse of shorts that I didn't need to see, but I don't know if
Well,
you've ever had.
I've never had that. I mean, I always dress as if you were going to meet me in terms of I'm fully clothed in that respect. And it's interesting because it can be so easy. I mean, I've got a decent lighting, I've got a nice microphone and a nice camera. I'm on those things enough for me to invest in having a decent camera and a
Right.
decent microphone. But I wouldn't beautify things. There has to be an element that says I am presenting my best self. I want to respect the
Right.
audience that are looking at me. And at the same time, I don't want to be rocking up made up to the nines or super, not super groomed, but that sort of impression. If you met
Right.
me, you'd see me as you see me now, as opposed to thinking, oh, who is this guy? And it's interesting. I've met people I've talked to on Zoom calls in person.
That's my plan. I'm
And
trying to meet you, Steve.
yes,
I just booked a flight as we were podcasting. I actually booked a flight to Jamaica for no, I'm just kidding.
oh,
Uh,
I would I'm meeting some my coach and his wife in Jamaica. They're going to be there. They're leaving just before Christmas, but I think we're
is he
going to
coaching you on
overlap.
having a Jamaican accent? Is that what you hired him for, or?
No, no, no. He's American. He's got his US accent, but it's the opportunity to meet in person and
Yeah.
and be
Well, you,
and
me, and
and be
Justin are
that
going to
real.
meet up for a competition of physical sorts.
I
That sounded
would.
very anonymous, very vague. I mean, like a maybe not a marathon, but maybe something different. All three of us have to meet up for a podcast at some point. That an episode that gets streamed on your podcast, my podcast, and by that time, his podcast.
There you go. Well, Will Otero is in New York, and he's another mutual podcast friend and
One could say
my
he's a
mentor.
wise guy,
Yeah,
wise media.
yeah, wise. And he is putting on something on the East Coast, not too far from him. He's looking to put an event together. I
Oh
would,
man,
I
I'm a
would
pull through for
love
that.
to. I would love to.
Fly
It
out.
it won't make it. It wouldn't make it to this 12-week year cycle, but it will be something that would definitely be on the radar for 2026. Is to have some. I don't do any in-person podcasts. I did one with my mum when she was here last year, and that was the only one I've done in person. I'm looking forward to do another one with her, which would be just great, just to follow up. But it would be not. It would be. Oh my goodness, that would be such a
Mom, it's
blast
been 4 years
having
since I
us
last saw you in my time, in my
in
world.
my time.
It's like Interstellar. If you ever seen that movie, it's like we were only gone for a day. It's been 20 years. It's like what? That's what it
That's
feels
compression.
like.
That's a whole messing with your head with time as well.
Yeah, but
But
Steve,
yeah,
yeah, you completely ignored well, I mean, I guess you answered it, but are you wearing pants right now? That was the question we were getting at,
I'm
I
not going to
think.
stand up to show you, but I'm wearing tracksuit bottoms and track
You're not
pants.
wearing khakis. You're not
And
wearing
I'm
khakis.
not
You
wearing
got
I'm not wearing I'm not wearing
okay.
I'm not wearing khakis.
Tracksuit.
I'm
Are
gonna
you
do
going
some
jump roping?
no, I'm gonna do some Pilates style exercises after this call. So it's late. It's getting late
I
here,
know
but
it's late because I said we started at 5 my time, 5 p.m. And I was like, isn't this guy like 5 to 6 hours ahead of me or something? And I said,
yes,
why'd he book
that
such a late call? As we wrap up here, Mr. Wright,
mm,
the One-on-One Thing podcast, I shamelessly mentioned it a few times. No shame because I love that podcast. I last week I started following it officially and I downloaded episodes officially. So hopefully you get
thank
that
you.
backlog downloaded in your stats there. But why did you start the podcast and who should listen to it?
One-to-one thing, it was and is still a passion project. It was my stream of consciousness opportunity to share what I was thinking in the space of conversations that we have in a professional setting, in an interpersonal setting, and an internal setting.
Mm,
Our biggest conversations happen inside of us by far, and they manifest themselves into interpersonal, like relationship type discussions, and also
100%.
into a work professional setting. So we bring our two selves, the two discussions, the two people that are conversing inside us show up at our meetings. And the one-to-one thing was really a nod to the book, The One Thing, Gary Keller's book on The One Thing, and basically a sort of a play on the one-on-one conversations. I was a manager for, like I said, for a support team, and the power of the one-to-one conversations I had with my team, and that really spoke to the importance of having those conversations understood. So it was an opportunity for me to delve into psychology and that sort of mindset space. It started off as a single solo podcast, just me talking through some ideas, and then pivoted into an interview style. And I love it. One of my earlier coaches, I asked them what was one of the key things in the coaching space that is either underrated or we need to learn. And she said, the art of listening, the ability to listen, not just active, but really listen.
Mm,
And I use the show as an opportunity for me to listen to many voices from different walks. My mum's been a guest. You're yet to be you're lined up to be a guest. There's people that are in our spaces that you know, whether they're coaches, whether they're business people, whether they just have a story that resonates. It's important that we have a space where I can practice listening. I selfishly learn to listen through every show, and
mm.
I offer the opportunity for guests to really show their gold and show how they show up in the world and how they make things better. So I love it. Coming up to almost 100 episodes now, and it's a great milestone to achieve. And it's still a project in work in progress. It's sustainable. It's something that is definitely part of who I am, and long may it continue. So very excited for it.
For
Who
sure.
should
And
listen? Who should listen? If you
everyone,
like to eavesdrop
your
on
mom, your dad,
conversations,
your aunt, your uncle, your cat, your fish, the houseplants, everyone.
if you if you like to eavesdrop on conversations that are interesting, sometimes the accents are difficult. There's people from different parts of the world, US, UK, Africa, Caribbean, and I'm not saying that's not a problem if you've got an accent, but I'm just saying it's I want people to understand that this is not your show telling you how to get things done, things A to B. You know, it's not a job to it's not a podcast about finance or even about coaching per se, but it's an opportunity for you to eavesdrop on some interesting conversations. Hopefully you'll learn something from the guest or from the interaction. You'll understand what it takes to listen attentively and what you can learn when you're sort of still enough to listen to the person in front of you. So I re-listen to some of my shows and it's good learning.
Your number one fan and listener, yourself. No,
I
that's how
am.
I feel. I listen to every episode of my show at least two or three times. The initial recording progress, the editing it or not editing it, depending how it was, and then, listening back, making sure everything's good and all that. And sometimes just to, you know, there's great knowledge to be had, and sometimes I'll go back and what I'll do if I don't feel like listening is if I'm trying to find something for someone that I'm networking with or talking to, I just go to into the transcript for it on Apple Podcasts and I'll keyword search because
Mhm.
I'll remember, something they said or exact number they give. Like the other day, I was like, let me double check for you. I can tell you exactly how many grams of opioids this guy was injecting in his intestines. And I went and looked it up.
Yeah.
That was a very specific example, but that's what I was looking up the other day. Not to promote it. Don't do
Mhm.
opioids unless professionally medically described and you're going to die otherwise. But yeah, don't just do them for fun. But Steve, I want to eavesdrop a little bit on your life. The last question,
Mm.
what movie did you and Tony Robbins watch many years ago together? And did he cry?
Yes, he did. And it's okay. I mean, he didn't cry like a baby, but it certainly it moved a lot. It moved a lot of us at the time. And
Did
we
you
went to
cry?
see. I teared up. I
Mm.
definitely teared. There was a couple of moments there that
They
I
didn't roll
that
down the face. They just kind of hovered.
it filled up. It filled up the ducts a little bit. There
Yeah.
was a little bit of seepage on the corner. So,
Just
but it wasn't.
allergies.
Yeah, it wasn't a. It wasn't a full on. It wasn't a full on nose runny
Yeah.
bawling cry. But it was a few of us actually, a few of the coaches that work with Tony, and we were in La Jolla in California, and we went to see Jerry Maguire when it released in the movies. It was 98 movie came. I think it was 98 the movie came out, and we
So
watched it.
young Steve Wright, fit, tall, handsome.
Oh, it was fun. It was a great a great season. It was a great season in
A
my
great
life.
period.
Yeah. Great period. Periodization. It was more than
Yeah.
yeah. It was a good number of years, and it stuck with me. And I've got friends. I've got friends to this day from just working in that space. And yeah, Tony. Yeah, Tony had his big old eyeballs filled up like buckets.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring that up, ladies and gentlemen, is because if you read the About for the One on One Thing podcast with Steve Wright, it says all the way at the bottom, fun fact, I went to the movies with Tony Robbins many years ago. DM me on LinkedIn if you want to know. And
Oh, you
like I
just
said,
busted it.
for the first time the other day, I was like, I don't, am I subscribed to Steve's show? Because I'll watch the clips on LinkedIn and I've got so many podcasts in my directory from all the people I work with. Oh, subscribe to
Yeah.
my podcast. Yeah, of course. So I get notifications I get some of these guys post 3 times a day. Like the amount of
Wow.
podcast notifications I get, right? So I had to go digging for your show and I was reading and I saw that little question. So I had to
Yeah.
ask you because I
Oh,
just saw it. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, go check out the One on One Thing podcast, available pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts.
go
We
check it
got
out.
that in the description below, along with the managers who lead, Steve's LinkedIn, where he's most active, his Instagram, where he's not so active, and anywhere else you need
I'm
to
gonna try.
reach him.
I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do better this year. Okay.
You're good. Steve's Instagram, what I found out is if you actually want to talk to Steve, Facebook and LinkedIn. If you want to see how much he jump roped, you go to Instagram. It's like the only thing he posts. Sometimes he'll post stuff on his stories, but they're the same things you can see on LinkedIn and Facebook. So you're better
It's
off
my
sticking
app.
with, yeah.
It's my jump rope app that I normally do a little report and
Oh, does it
record
automatically
the jumps.
upload to your Instagram or?
Yes, yeah, the app gives me a little picture and it just says share and I press share.
Oh, okay.
I don't do it every time. I jump more than I report,
The
only
highlights.
because I don't want to feel like every time I jump I have to report. It's
Yeah.
one of those things that my head doesn't like.
No,
The
for sure.
Yeah, but
All right,
I
ladies
do
and
I do enjoy
gentlemen,
jump rope.
your call to action today, go jump roping. If you took anything
It
away from this whole episode, it's to go jump rope.
it's a
No,
beautiful
but
thing. It's a beautiful
Mr.
thing.
Wright, it's great to talk to you. Like I said, one of the funniest guys I know. It's great to
One
have you back. I was really curious about the 12-week year. It is something that I'm looking at being a part of that cohort 2026. I am looking at doing periodization next year to set everything up, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of a ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.